Your automatic transmission probably cost more than your first car. We're talking $3, $4, sometimes $5,000 just to rebuild one of these things. But here's the kicker. Most people are killing their transmissions without even knowing it. We're not talking about drag racing or deliberately abusing your car. We're talking about everyday habits that seem perfectly normal until your mechanic hands you a repair bill that makes you question every life choice you've ever made. I've been working on cars for decades, and I can tell you that automatic transmissions fail more from ignorance than from age. So let's talk about the big mistakes people make with their automatic cars. Because once you understand what's actually happening inside that transmission case, these rules are going to make a whole lot more sense. Coasting in neutral. Let's start with one of the most common ones. You're cruising down the highway and you think to yourself, hey, if I shift into neutral, I'll coast and save some fuel. Sounds logical, right? You're letting physics do the work instead of burning gas. Wrong. Dead wrong. First off, the fuel savings are basically non-existent. A guy on YouTube actually tested this with real-world measurements, and guess what? Even when you're coasting in neutral, the engine and wheels are still turning, which means they're still using fuel. The savings you're getting are so small you couldn't measure them at the pump. But here's the bigger problem. You're actually damaging your transmission. When you shift to neutral while you're moving, your automatic transmission loses proper lubrication. These transmissions rely on oil pressure to keep everything running smooth, and that pressure drops when you're in neutral with the engine idling. You're essentially letting all those metal gears and clutches rub together without enough protection. And let's talk about safety for a second. When you're in neutral, you have way less control over your car. You can't accelerate quickly if you need to avoid something. You lose engine braking, which means you're going to be harder on your actual brakes. If you're going downhill and something happens, a kid runs into the street, the car in front of you slams on their brakes, you're going to need to react fast, and being in neutral isn't helping you do that. Some people do this going down mountains or long hills thinking they're being smart, but automatic transmissions are designed to use engine braking to help control your speed. When you take that away, you're just wearing out your brake pads faster and potentially overheating your brakes on a long descent. So keep it in drive. Your transmission will thank you. Your brakes will thank you. And honestly, your wallet will thank you when you're not buying a new transmission at 80,000 miles. Shifting before you stop. This one makes me cringe every single time I see it. People rolling up to their driveway, and before the car even stops moving, they're already shoving it into park or reverse. Or they're backing out of a parking spot and throw it into drive while still rolling backward. I get it, you're in a hurry. You want to save half a second. But that half second is going to cost you thousands. Here's what's happening inside your transmission when you do this. Modern automatic transmissions have these things called clutch packs and bands. They're responsible for changing gears and direction. When you shift from drive to reverse or reverse to drive, these clutches have to engage and disengage. If the car is still moving when you make that shift, you're forcing these components to suddenly stop the entire momentum of your vehicle. Think about it. Your car weighs anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 pounds. When you're rolling at even 2 or 3 miles per hour, that's a lot of kinetic energy. And you're asking your transmission to absorb all of that energy instantly. The clutches aren't designed for that. They're designed to smoothly transition when the vehicle is stationary or when you're accelerating in the same direction. Transmission specialists will tell you that this creates what they call torque spikes, sudden, violent forces that damage the internal components. You might not notice it the first time, or even the 100th time, but that damage accumulates. Over time, your clutches start to slip, your bands wear out, and eventually, you're looking at a transmission rebuild. And it's not just about the clutches. When you shift into park while rolling, you're engaging a small metal hook called a parking pole. This thing is designed to hold your car stationary on a hill, not to stop a moving vehicle. If you're putting your car in park before it fully stops, you're slamming that pole against a spinning gear. That's the clunk sound you hear when you park on a steep hill and then try to take it out of park later. That's the pole stuck under load. The fix is simple. Come to a complete stop. Wait until you feel the car settle. Then shift. That's it. Add 1 second to your routine and save yourself thousands of dollars. Putting maximum load on the parking pole. Speaking of that parking pole, let's talk about how you park. Most people do this. They pull into their driveway, take their foot off the brake, let the car settle back against the transmission, and then put it in park. This is backwards. When you let your car settle against the transmission like that, you're putting the entire weight of your vehicle onto that little parking pawl I mentioned earlier. This is especially bad if you're parked on any kind of incline. Your car could weigh 4,000 pounds, and that's a lot of stress on a component that wasn't really designed to bear that load long term. You'll know you've done this when you try to shift out of park and it feels stuck. You have to really muscle the shifter to get it out. That stiff binding feeling? That's the pawl trying to release while it's under enormous pressure. According to transmission diagrams from manufacturers, this creates wear on the locking mechanism. Do this enough times and you'll actually damage the pawl or the gear it locks into. The right way to park is simple. Come to a stop using your brakes. Engage your parking brake, not your emergency brake, your parking brake, because that's what it's actually for. Then, and only then, put the car in park. This transfers the load to your brakes instead of your transmission. When you go to leave, you do the reverse. Shift into drive or reverse and then release the parking brake. This takes all the stress off that little pawl and puts it where it belongs, on your brake system, which is actually designed to hold your car in place. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. I never use my parking brake, it's fine. And maybe it has been fine for you. But parking brakes can seize up if you never use them, especially in rust-prone areas. So actually using it regularly keeps it functional. Plus, you're protecting your transmission. 2 birds, 1 stone. Launching your car. This one should be obvious, but I still see people doing it. We've all seen those Fast and Furious movies. The hero revs the engine while in neutral, then slams it into drive and takes off in a cloud of tire smoke. Don't do that. When you rev your engine in neutral or park and then drop it into drive, you're creating a massive shock to your transmission system. The engine is spinning at high RPMs, and suddenly you're asking the transmission to connect all that rotational force to the wheels. The torque converter, the clutches, the bands, everything takes a huge hit. This isn't a one-and-done thing. Some people think if their transmission doesn't explode the first time they do it, they're fine. But you're creating micro damage every single time. The friction material on the clutches starts to wear away faster. The bands get stressed. Over time, you develop slipping, harsh shifts, and eventually, complete failure. And it's not just dramatic launches. Even moderately aggressive driving, constantly flooring it from stoplights, doing burnouts in parking lots, puts excessive wear on your automatic transmission. Performance cars are built with beefier transmissions that can handle more abuse, but even those have limits. The proper way to accelerate in an automatic car is boring, but effective. Put it in drive, then smoothly apply the accelerator. That's it. Your transmission is designed to handle normal acceleration all day long. It's designed to shift smoothly through the gears as you gradually increase speed. What it's not designed for is shock loads and violent torque spikes. If you really want to drive aggressively, buy a car with a manual transmission. At least then, when the clutch burns out from your Fast and Furious fantasies, you're looking at a $500 to $1,500 clutch job instead of a $4,000 transmission rebuild. Ignoring transmission fluid service. Here's where things get controversial. Open your owner's manual right now, and there's a good chance it says something like, "Transmission fluid is lifetime fill," or "No service required under normal conditions." This is, and I'm being diplomatic here, misleading. Transmission fluid is the lifeblood of your automatic transmission. It lubricates all the moving parts, it cools the system, it provides the hydraulic pressure that makes the whole thing work. Over time, this fluid breaks down. It gets contaminated with tiny metal particles from normal wear. It oxidizes from heat. Even the best synthetic transmission fluid isn't truly lifetime. When manufacturers say lifetime, they often mean for the lifetime of the warranty. Your car might have a 5-year, 60,000-mile warranty. Yeah, the fluid might last that long. But what about when you want to keep driving that car to 150,000 miles, 200,000 miles? Dirty transmission fluid causes slipping. It causes harsh shifts. It leads to overheating. In high-mileage used cars with unknown service history, contaminated fluid is one of the most common reasons for transmission failure. The recommendation from actual transmission specialists, not marketing departments, is to change your transmission fluid every 60,000 to 80,000 miles. Some people go even more conservative and do it every 40,000 miles if they do a lot of towing or city driving. And before anyone says, "But my friend never changed their fluid and their car ran fine," yeah, some people get lucky. Some people smoke their whole lives and never get cancer. Doesn't mean it's a good idea. Changing transmission fluid is relatively inexpensive compared to replacing a transmission. We're talking a couple $100 for a fluid change versus thousands for a rebuild. It's cheap insurance. One more thing on this topic. If you have a transmission with a dipstick, check the fluid level regularly. Low fluid is just as bad as dirty fluid. If you notice it's low, don't just top it off and forget about it. Find out where it's going. Transmission leaks need to be fixed, not ignored. Driving through deep water. Now this one might seem random, but it's more common than you think. You see a puddle, a flooded street, maybe there's heavy rain and water is pooling on the road. You think, it's not that deep, and you go for it. Bad idea with an automatic transmission. Automatics have a vent. They have to have one. As the transmission fluid heats up and cools down, it expands and contracts. Without a vent, you'd build up pressure that could damage seals. So, there's a vent to equalize that pressure. But here's the problem. If you drive through water that's deep enough, water can get sucked into that vent. And water and transmission fluid do not mix. When you mix water with transmission fluid, the water sinks to the bottom and starts causing rust and corrosion on all the ferrous components inside your transmission. A guy on YouTube did an experiment where he mixed water and transmission fluid in a clear container. You could see the water settle at the bottom, forming this layer underneath the fluid. That's what's happening inside your transmission case if water gets in there. Sometimes you get lucky. If you catch it quick and flush the system, you might be okay. But often, once water is in there, the damage is done. Rust forms, components start to fail, and before you know it, you need a new transmission. Now, I'm not saying you can never drive in the rain, obviously. I'm talking about deep water. If you can see water splashing up to your bumper or higher, that's probably too deep. If there's flooding and you're not sure how deep it is, don't risk it. Find another route. And if you do accidentally drive through deep water, get your transmission fluid checked as soon as possible. A mechanic can look at it and tell you if water got in there. Better to know early than to wait for catastrophic failure. Idling and drive for extended periods. This one surprises people. You're sitting in a drive-through line, or waiting to pick someone up, or stuck in stop-and-go traffic on the highway. Your car is in drive, foot on the brake, engine running. Seems harmless, right? For short periods, it's fine. But if you're going to be sitting there for more than a couple minutes, you should either shut off the car or at least shift to park or neutral. When your car is in drive, even when you're stopped, the torque converter is still trying to transfer power from the engine to the transmission. It's not directly connected the way it would be in park, but there's still resistance, still friction, still heat being generated. If you idle and drive for long periods, and I'm talking 10, 15, 20 minutes, you're building up heat in the transmission. Heat is one of the biggest enemies of automatic transmissions. The fluid breaks down faster when it's hot. Components wear faster. Seals can start to fail. This is especially true in the summer when it's hot outside and your engine is already running warm. Adding extra heat from prolonged idling and drive just compounds the problem. The simple fix is to shift to park if you're going to be sitting for a while. In park, the torque converter isn't under as much load. The transmission stays cooler. Less wear, less heat, longer life. And honestly, if you're going to be sitting there for more than a few minutes, just shut the car off. Save gas, save your transmission, save your engine. Modern cars are designed for start-stop operation. That myth about how starting your car uses a bunch of gas, that was true in the 1970s. It's not true anymore. Doing burnouts and abusing your transmission. I touched on this earlier with the launch control stuff, but it deserves its own section. Burnouts, drifting, anything where you're intentionally spinning your tires or making your transmission work harder than it needs to. All of this is murder on an automatic transmission. When you do a burnout, your transmission is trying to transfer all the engine's power to the wheels, but the wheels are just spinning freely. That creates an enormous amount of heat and friction inside the transmission. The clutches are slipping, the bands are working overtime, the fluid is getting cooked. Do this once at a car show to impress your friends and you might get away with it. Do it regularly and you're going to destroy your transmission. Automatic transmissions are not designed for this kind of abuse.
Manual transmissions are a bit more forgiving because when the clutch burns out, you replace the clutch. Automatic transmissions don't have one clutch you can easily replace. They have multiple clutch packs, bands, and components that all work together. When you burn out an automatic transmission, you're often looking at a complete rebuild. And again, even if you're not doing full burnouts, just habitually driving aggressively, mashing the accelerator from every stop, racing from light to light, wears out your transmission faster. The harder you drive, the more heat you generate, and heat kills automatics. If you like to drive hard, that's fine, but understand that you're shortening the life of your transmission, and maybe consider buying a performance car with a transmission that's actually designed for that kind of driving. Or better yet, buy a manual, towing beyond your vehicle's capacity. Last one, and this is for all you truck and SUV owners out there. Just because your vehicle has a hitch doesn't mean you can tow whatever you want. Every vehicle has a tow rating. It's in your owner's manual. That rating takes into account your engine power, your transmission's capabilities, your cooling system, and your vehicle's structure. When you exceed that rating, you're putting stress on every part of your drivetrain, but especially your transmission. Transmissions can overheat when towing, especially if you're towing heavy loads up hills or in hot weather. When a transmission overheats, the fluid breaks down rapidly, seals can fail, internal components can warp, and once you overheat a transmission badly enough, the damage is permanent. Tow ratings also factor in the weight of cargo you're carrying. So if you've got 4 people and a bunch of gear in your truck, that counts toward your total weight capacity. You can't just look at the trailer weight in isolation. If you do a lot of towing, consider adding a transmission cooler if your vehicle doesn't already have one. It's a relatively inexpensive modification that can dramatically extend the life of your transmission. And always check your transmission fluid level and condition after towing, especially after long trips or heavy loads. So there you have it, the big mistakes people make with automatic transmissions. None of these are complicated. None of them require you to be a mechanic or to really understand how transmissions work. They're just simple habits that, if you change them, will save you thousands of dollars and years of headache. Your transmission is one of the most expensive components in your car. Treat it right, and it'll last 200,000 miles or more. Treat it wrong, and you'll be shopping for a new car or a used transmission way sooner than you should be. Which of these mistakes have you been making? Let me know in the comments. And if this video saved you from a future transmission rebuild, hit that subscribe button. I've got more car advice coming your way.